She was called one of the most attractive women in Switzerland during the Miss Switzerland contest in 2007. However, 17 years later, Kristina Jovic's name was once again in the spotlight, this time for the most tragic reasons. It all began with a phone call from the kindergarten attended by her children. Unfortunately, Kristina did not pick them up at the end of the day. Kristina's parents naturally became very worried about their daughter's sudden disappearance. Meanwhile, her husband seemed completely calm. Since less than 24 hours had passed since Kristina's disappearance, the authorities refused to intervene. At that point, Kristina's father decided to take matters into his own hands and started searching the house. What he discovered was truly horrifying. Switzerland is one of the central mountainous countries of Europe, a land full of lakes, villages, and towering alpine peaks. It seems like there are more ski resorts and hiking trails here than people. Nevertheless, around 9 million people call this place home. The capital of the country is Bern, and the largest city is Zurich. If you travel about an hour north of Bern or west of Zurich, you'll find yourself in a city bordering France and Germany. This charming town is Basel, a beautiful place for a walk, with Gothic cathedrals, red-tiled rooftops on the buildings, and the Rhine River flowing through the city. Southwest of Basel is a small town called Bingen. It was on the night of February 13, 2024, that a horrifying discovery shook the entire town. It all began the day before when the grandparents received a call from their granddaughter's kindergarten. Their daughter Kristina, a former model and successful entrepreneur, hadn't picked up her children after classes. This was very unusual because Kristina loved her children and was always an incredibly responsible mother. The situation became increasingly suspicious because the children's father also wasn't answering his phone. After picking up their grandchildren from kindergarten, the grandparents returned to the family home, where they found Mark, but Kristina was nowhere to be seen. Most surprisingly, Mark seemed completely calm, as if nothing had happened. He claimed he had no idea where his wife was and even offered Kristina's father a drink. He acted as if nothing had happened for several hours and seemed quite cheerful. He talked to Kristina's parents like it was just another ordinary day. He then said goodnight to the children, wished them well, and sent them off to bed. But Kristina's father wasn't about to just leave and let things stay as they were. He was deeply concerned about his daughter's fate. Instead of simply leaving the house and driving away, he decided to carefully search the place. Kristina and Mark lived in a prestigious home in Bingen. It was quite a large property with many nooks and hidden corners, so it took Kristina's father some time to check all the rooms and go outside. Eventually, he descended into the laundry room, which was located in the house's basement. This space more closely resembled an isolated bunker, with thick concrete walls and steel doors. When he finally entered, he noticed several large garbage bags lying in the corner of the room. From one of them, to his horror, strands of blonde hair were sticking out. Curiosity got the better of him. Tragically, the bag contained his daughter's head. After opening the bag and realizing what had happened, he ran out of the house, screaming and calling for help. Shortly thereafter, the police received a call from the distraught father, who reported that his daughter had been brutally murdered. It became clear that Kristina Jovic was dead, and that her husband was likely responsible for her death. Kristina was an extraordinary person who definitely stood out from others. Her career was inspiring. Kristina was born and raised in Bingen but had Serbian roots through her parents. As she grew up, she won the Miss Northwestern Switzerland pageant in 2003 and was a finalist in the Miss Switzerland contest in 2007. In addition to that, she earned other awards in this field. It can be confidently said that she possessed classic beauty, but her talents did not end there. Her potential blossomed even further after she ended her runway career. Kristina started her own business, where she taught women how to walk in fashion shows and beauty pageants. But this wasn't enough for the ambitious Kristina. At the same time, she worked as an IT consultant at Google while gradually growing her business. In her personal life, Kristina was a strong woman devoted to supporting and inspiring other women. She was a wife and the mother of 2 daughters, Vera Clara, born in 2020, and Kira Sofia, born in 2021. Based on numerous photos online, it was evident how much she loved her family. Kristina was a kind and warm-hearted person, as full of warmth as she was beautiful. She was exceptionally dedicated to her family. However, while Kristina evoked only positive emotions in many people, her husband did not enjoy the same sympathy. Although he had friends and Kristina loved him, many of her close ones noticed his explosive nature. Mark was a respected leader in change management in the Basel region, largely thanks to his father, who had secured his future as a millionaire and lawyer. Before becoming a leader in change management, Mark served as an officer in the Swiss Air Force. He studied at the University of St. Gallen and later, according to reports, continued his education at Stanford University. Additionally, he ran his own business related to lean methodologies and continuous process improvement. On his LinkedIn profile, Mark described himself as a goal-driven entrepreneur. According to his words, life was about people and the communication between them. Even his Twitter posts suggested he was rather unremarkable, and his life seemed as monotonous as the corporate world in which he was entrenched. In any case, Kristina and Mark married in 2019. Their wedding was beautiful and took place in a castle overlooking hills and fields. Later, they welcomed their 2 wonderful daughters. Everything seemed perfect, at least at first glance and on social media. Online, you can find numerous photos where they look madly in love. Picnics in the park, cuddling on the floor, and taking selfies together at home. However, behind closed doors, things were entirely different. Kristina's friends were very unhappy with Mark's behavior, especially in the months leading up to her death. One of her friends recalled that the couple had been going through a crisis that lasted several months. Police had even been called to their home when the situation escalated into violence. According to witnesses, Mark was obsessively focused on the children, treating them as an ideal project. Kristina, on the other hand, was an obstacle to him. Mark considered himself superior to others, which was particularly evident during the children's birthday parties when he divided the guests into 2 groups, his family and Kristina's family. Mark's former partners had also reported instances of severe violence to the prosecutor's office, which had occurred before April 2016, before he met Kristina. His terrifying outbursts of anger were torment for her. On one occasion, he drove over her foot with his car, and another time he threatened to throw her out of the vehicle while driving home. It was also claimed that he grabbed her by the neck and pinned her forcefully against the wall during arguments. Mark frequently lost control, which often resulted in him hitting or attempting to strangle her. It also turned out that Kristina was not his first victim. Unaware of all this, Kristina continued to post beautiful photos on social media, convinced that Mark was the perfect husband who would never harm her. In old photos, she called him her rock and proudly announced her second pregnancy. Just months before the tragedy, she shared a picture of her family with the caption, "My world." The cruel irony was that it was Mark who ultimately destroyed that world. Now, despite the presumption of innocence, the evidence and testimonies against Mark are overwhelming. But what exactly happened to Kristina? Although the case has yet to be decided in court, we can share what is currently known. Initially, Mark claimed he didn't kill Kristina. He stated that he found her in the laundry room and, in a panic, dismembered her body. However, realizing that the evidence against him was too incriminating, he confessed to the murder. He tried to justify it by claiming he acted in self-defense, alleging that Kristina attacked him with a knife. Forensic experts refuted this version of events. Based on marks found on her neck, it was determined that she had been strangled. That wasn't all. The autopsy revealed that Kristina's head had been severed using a handsaw, a knife, and garden shears. Mark also dislocated her hips before systematically dismembering her body. During this gruesome act, Mark watched YouTube videos on his iPhone, but he refused to provide the passcode, suggesting he had something to hide. The most horrifying detail was that he removed only one organ, Kristina's uterus. Experts began to speculate that this act might have deeper significance. Mark ground parts of the body in a powerful industrial blender and dissolved others in chemicals. The remaining parts bore signs of blunt force trauma inflicted before Kristina's death. Among these injuries were wounds on her cheek, below her eyebrow, on her nose, bruises on her leg, foot, shoulder blades, and the back of her head. There were also signs of hair being forcibly pulled from her scalp. Most of these horrifying acts were committed in the laundry room, as confirmed by evidence and traces found there. Mark spent several hours with his wife's body before returning to his daily routine as if nothing had happened. He looked Kristina's father in the eye, shared drinks with him, and assured him that Kristina would return soon. Kristina's father, deeply concerned, searched the house and stumbled upon his daughter's head. The worst possible discovery. In the time between this horrific finding and the arrival of the police, Kristina's father confronted Mark, who appeared eerily calm. During his arrest, Mark tried to convince Kristina's parents that they would see her again, further highlighting his lack of remorse and detachment from reality. What drove Mark to kill his wife? That remains a mystery. However, it is known that Kristina was planning to divorce Mark. Perhaps this pushed him to the brink of madness. After his arrest, Mark attempted to secure release from custody. He appealed to the Basel court, then the cantonal court, and finally the federal court. All his requests were denied. Experts noted signs of mental disorders, a high level of criminal energy, a lack of empathy, and cold-bloodedness. His efforts to conceal his wife's death and then act as though nothing had happened indicated a clear sadistic nature and sociopathy. Kristina left behind 2 daughters. Her family is now fighting for their custody. Kristina's parents and sister have joined forces to ensure the girls have a safe and loving home. Meanwhile, Mark's sister is also seeking custody, claiming Kristina's parents are too old to care for the children. Kristina's family is now enduring a difficult legal battle. Mark's sister is supported by their millionaire father and his legal team. This is a heavy blow for Kristina's family, who have already lost their daughter and now risk losing their grandchildren. Kristina's home stands empty. The furniture likely remains inside, but the building looks abandoned. Flowers lie at the entrance, and the stairs and yard are overgrown with weeds. Her grave bears 2 crosses, heart-shaped stones, and drawings from her daughters. Her friends remember her as a strong, energetic woman who supported others. This tragic story reminds us of how fragile life is, and the importance of fighting for truth and safety for victims of domestic violence. Kristina remains a symbol of strength and love that endures even through the darkest times.